I know, I'm like darting because I'm making sure there's no vacuum in the background.
That's all good. It's all good. That's part of life. And now we're live.
Amazing.
So yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you caught me last week with Rebecca Roth-Gullo from the Gallows Group. And I'm so excited to be here today with Veronica Armstrong from Eels in a Chair. So welcome, Veronica.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
Thank you for joining me again. We had such a great chat, even just a few minutes ago, but last week when we talked. So I'm really excited to continue this conversation with you.
You're like my long lost friend.
I feel like we're so connected now. I know.
It was good.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your business in the context of the industry that you're in.
We are a bee-powered home fragrance company. So what that means is we create products that make your home smell good. And so within the context of our industry, we are committed to two things. So the first is it's a luxury product, and we believe that what we take from the earth, we should replenish. And so when we looked at the category, also as consumers, right, like who doesn't love a good candle or room spray, really just looked at the gaps and what was missing. And what we felt was missing was just something to raise awareness of climate change in the context of a luxury product, right? Like, how can you call yourself a luxury product without being mindful of your impact on the earth and society and communities? And so our products are made of beeswax. We have a plastic-free supply chain, and we just do everything that we can to really honor that. We want our product to not only do no harm, but also be an active participant in making the earth a healthier place by raising awareness about the impacts of climate change on some ecosystems. To, in that vein, the first three fragrances were inspired by a country called Dominica that had its bee population decimated after Hurricane Maria. And so we use Dominican beeswax in our candles. We hire Dominican beekeepers to maintain our hives, and so on and so forth. So it sounds pretty basic. It's candles, later it'll be room spray, home fragrance products, but ultimately we create these really gorgeous, complex products that not only smell nice, but do good things.
I love that so much. We haven't even got to talk about bees yet, but one of our philanthropic missions, I love that you're so mission driven as a consumer based company. One of our missions as well is environmental and agricultural sustainability. And so beer is an agricultural product. And actually we use honey in some of our beers and now in food at the restaurant. And we're looking forward to keeping bees at our farm. So I can't wait to pick your brain about that. Yeah.
We should trade. You give me some wax, I'll give you some of our honey.
I think this is so perfect. This is what we're all about. It's like shortening that supply chain and making meaningful connections. So
bees are incredible. That's exciting.
Thanks. I can't wait. And we will definitely stay connected on that. So I forgot to mention to anybody who's watching us right now, I'm going to run through the same panel of questions each week in this series. So that way we can get different perspectives from different entrepreneurs, because we all kind of face the same challenges in different ways. So these questions should sound familiar, but your answers, Veronica, will be totally unique. So thinking back to when you began conceptualizing your business, what's one thing that you would tell yourself now that you wish that you knew?
Sometimes when you want to make something exceptional, you're going to make it much harder on yourself from all facets. And so I would say to really consider whether you need to go all in on something that's really challenging. So an example would be our vessel is just hands down the most beautiful candle vessel that I have ever seen. I've done a lot of research. So when the candle burns down, it glows from within and it starts to reveal a honeycomb pattern to sort of remind you, it's a luxury product, so you should get more than just a nice smell. From my perspective, you should get this really beautiful art and ambiance. But it is so hard to make, okay? It's like, it took over 2 years to really get this right. And that's okay, right? So that's a decision that we made and we felt comfortable with. And we really felt we wanted to make a statement about the brand and what luxury really means and how every single piece of this product should really say something meaningful. But my advice, if I could give it to my past self, would be just think about the implications of that, right? So when COVID hit, it took something that was already really hard, made it harder, made it take longer. And it doesn't necessarily mean I would have changed anything, but I think maybe having gone in with that insight, I might have reprioritized, my candle sizes that I released or things like that. So making really gorgeous stuff is worth it, but you can make it really hard on yourself from manufacturing, supply chain, product design, like whatever. So really make sure it's worth it.
We see the same things and have had those same challenges because we are really focused on, as part of kind of like the hospitality value of our business, we want to go next level. So we try and exceed expectations in everything that we do. And so sometimes it's those like little extras where you might not notice that honeycomb pattern isn't there, but when you do notice it, it's like a wow factor. And so quantifying the value of that wow can be really difficult, especially when you go down the rabbit hole of like coming up with this cool idea that you think will be meaningful, that is worth it. And it's recognizing like all of the like those moments in the chain to get there. And then being able to quantify that and say, like, is this going to bring value? Like, is this something that's going to be appreciated, or just like maintain the integrity of the product that I want to create?
That's exactly it. And it's a really interesting challenge because I still don't know. Like, I believe very strongly in it, but I'm like, does anybody else care? And like, people are buying it and loving it, but you sometimes can't quantify delight. And so, yeah, it's a very ethereal thing, and it's something I think about every day. But I think going into it knowing that if you make that decision, you might be making like 10 other things more difficult. Do you have the conviction to, ride it out and see what the data says after you've accumulated enough? It would have been good to know. I literally had no idea it would be this hard. I stand by it for now.
I am going to take that from you. Quantify delight. I am going to use that now forever forward. I give you credit, but like that's going to be part of my mission is how do we quantify delight? And I'll share my formula when I come up with it.
Please, I'm working on it. Well, I can give you one anecdote. I talked to this guy yesterday because something else I'm working on has turned out to be incredibly hard. And he was like, well, why would you change this candle? This candle's gorgeous. And I'm like, because it's really expensive. It's really hard to make. I do want the product to be more accessible to people, and I want to make more of them. And the demand is there. And he's just like, you can sell $125 candles like this all day, change nothing. And I'm just like, okay, like this guy felt so strongly that this thing was magical. Yeah. So I'm like, are there another million of you, or now it's just us two? Like, what is it?
Well, so for us, that plays into scalability as well. Cause like, sure, maybe if you're okay selling, I don't know what your numbers are, but like you're okay selling $125 candles and that sustains you, fantastic. But if you need to sell 1,000 candles, like there are scalability points all along the way that you have to be able to make some of those trade-offs to achieve. So that is fascinating. And I find that some people like don't appreciate the level of detail that goes into making those decisions, and they just like, it's so cool that he fell in love with this candle, but it's hard to balance all of those components.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, again, I'm very committed to it, but I think I spend a lot of time thinking about like the decision-making process that got us here. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea how hard it would be, but it's also, it's what keeps me really excited about it. So I'm not complaining. It's more of a like, man, does everyone love this thing as much? But yes, you could sell $125 candles and just be cool with that. But that's just not why I did this, Mm-hmm. Like I want to be bigger than Yankee Candle, Yeah. So for me, I do actually have to figure out that problem pretty quickly.
Yeah, that is a real goal right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to talk about scaling. So no matter the size of your business, what I found, nobody can do everything alone. So when did you decide that it was time for you to bring other people in, to begin hiring, and kind of, I know that you're early in this, but like, how has your staffing model changed as you progressed?
Yeah, there's two things there. The first person we brought in that wasn't on the founding team is very new. She came in maybe 3 months after launch, and I wasn't looking for her. So very randomly, I moved, and she was in my neighborhood. She had just started a marketing agency of her own. And I was like, I wonder if, it wasn't me that was solely tasked with these things, whether they'd actually get done. or faster. And so on a trial basis, we started working together, and she's absolutely crushing it. In terms of what the hiring model looks like in the future, I'm not sure. So we made a conscious decision not to fundraise. And so we are self-sustained, which is really exciting, but means we have to be really mindful of capital. So it might be like, maybe we can find 5 more people like this individual, or, maybe we can continue being really lean. I'm not exactly sure. But I think anytime you're bringing in that first person that wasn't there from like concept or shortly thereafter, it's a little bit of a leap of faith. But I think having been part of several like early stage startups and watching those scale really quickly, I'm fairly comfortable with bringing people in. Hiring is probably one of my superpowers. So it was also something I just leaned into, is I'm good at recognizing talent. And then lastly, I just nobody can do everything, and I found so some of the CEOs that I've worked with, brilliant people, but everyone is different. And so I remember working with one person who struggled with letting go, and how frustrating it was for me as an employee, and how the quality of the work would diminish or things wouldn't get done because this person was literally just too busy. He was like, no, I'll get to it. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now I'm doing that. Right. So it was a really, I think it was a really good idea to bring her on. And then the other side of it is we've had some people that, we would try to work with in exchange for equity. And again, that's happened at other startups. And that is, we sometimes like advisory, and that is a little bit bumpier. This is a tough game, you know what I mean? Like, to work like you're getting a paycheck when you're not at times, like in exchange for equity, getting that right is really difficult. And so some people stick around and some don't.
So you hit the nail on the head, like letting go, especially as an early entrepreneur, can be so hard. I talked about this a little bit last week, but like that was definitely a challenge for me, partially because I felt the weight, the responsibility of employment, of hiring people. And so there were for sure times where I was like, it's just easier if I do this myself. Like, I'll just do this myself and it'll be quicker. But also because I was nervous about bringing other people in and having them be at risk of my potential failure. Like, we didn't know if Trillium was going to make it. And now I've got these people who are committed to us that I feel responsible for. And I'm like, it's all on our shoulders to get this right. And so that was for sure a struggle for us in the beginning, was like bringing people in, but then trusting them to, like, they're here because they want to be here too. They're here because they want us all to succeed together. So if we didn't have to own that weight ourselves.
Well, and you have the retail locations too, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's just a whole different situation. So I've been in situations where we've raised a bunch of money, and the expectation is we're going to hit all these insane milestones, and you just full stop need people to do that, right? And so the piece of that hiring is really crazy. But then when you have like retail location hiring and hospitality hiring, like those are just insanely challenging hires to make and scale, like in their own right. So it almost makes me, I should say that my like funky model is a little bit of a test, but it's a privilege because I don't have those considerations, right? So like one of the things we do for Ilden and Chur is we work with retail partners instead of fronting our own space and having that overhead, right? So like it's challenging up front because we have to onboard these teams who we don't know and we don't sit with to give them the brand story so they can sell the products. But I don't have to, because I just don't have the bandwidth or the capital right now to, maintain a fast pace of hiring. I don't have to do, all that insane stuff you do. So it's hard on my end, but I think having kind of seen a little bit of what you do with Love Pop, it's just like, I want to keep it simple for as long as I can.
So that leads me right to my next question, actually. So you just mentioned retail, right? So like we now have in our peak season, when we have all of our locations fully operational at full capacity, which I'm like, we're just waiting for the summer, we'll be at about 300 employees. And so that is across multiple locations. It is hard. Like I can't do everything, and I definitely can't be every place. So for you, you're relying on now external partners. Do you feel that you've been successful in communicating your vision and values to both your team, but also those partners? Like, how do you maintain the commitment to the integrity and the storytelling from you to, kind of like to get to that consumer?
It's an awesome question. I mean, the team without a doubt gets it. Like, it's just a really brilliant group of people who have all, I think my business partners conceptualize the idea. So like they live it. And then when we go out, then there was me, then everybody that came after, just brilliant people in their own right, but people that bought into the vision enough to be part of the team. So like, that's easy. I don't worry about that at all. What I have learned about the story and with partners is if they don't do a good job, it's always my fault. Like, I didn't do the work ahead of time, put together the right playbook. So that's actually something that I'm working on, is like, I'll have some partners and I'm like, damn, like I'm spending a lot of money every month to have my products at this place and they're not moving. It's literally whack-a-mole because there's only one of me. And we were talking about this earlier where like, because of our team model, I don't place, the same demands that I do on myself on other people, right? Like I made the commitment to be the CEO of this company. But, I was really focused on product development and manufacturing, for example. So we launched in some stores. I didn't give them the best onboarding. Sales were low. I found a pocket of time, got together with them, put together a document. We did a training, and sales have like 3x since we did that at one of these partners.
Wow.
So like, I only blame myself.
Yeah. There are those things that, it goes back to what you were saying earlier too, about like the above and beyond, the little extra, like it is those details, that commitment to both your partnerships and the product that will like take you to the next level.
It is. And I know as a business scales, the effect isn't quite as profound, but when leaders are working on the problems that they are supposed to be working on, because there's all sorts of other stuff that comes up that you just have to take care of.
Yeah.
But when you're exactly where you're supposed to be, like you can see the impact on revenue. Like you just can. You know what I mean? It's like number of hours Veronica spent actually marketing. Oh, look at my dashboard this week. It looks great.
Yeah, it really is. Like it feels better. It feels more fluid. Like it's actually more of a relief. Like there's less stress when everything is perfectly aligned. Like when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's so interesting because I feel the same way.
It goes away when you get really, really big, I think, because you just get far removed from it. But when you're small enough, you're just like, okay, more time here, less time here, because I can literally see the money in the bank.
Yeah, but you know what? There's still like kind of that internal conflict, both sides of it, because when you're small, you feel like you have to do more, right? Because you're like, it's a smaller team, it's a smaller scale. You just like feel like you have to do more, but you should be further removed so you can make more progress, so you can get further ahead. And then when you do get bigger, it's like, okay, well now I am focused on bigger things, but do I still know what's going on in the day-to-day, like at the ground level? It's such a challenge.
That is fair. That is really, really true. I think I'm in the like, I could stand on a street corner and just tell strangers to buy my stuff growth phase. So
maybe I'll go stand outside our room and be like, hey, please come buy my beer.
I literally took a call on my porch this summer and was just being really loud, as I'm, apt to do. And I heard the Shopify dings like going off because my neighbor was just buying because he heard me being loud.
Oh, that's amazing. He's like, maybe if I buy candles, she'll go inside and fulfill my candle order.
I know. I was like, I would have walked them over.
Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit. Was there ever a time that you professionally, generally in your career, that you felt like you didn't belong or you were in over your head? And then how did you overcome that?
I hate admitting that though.
Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah, I don't, I think that times that I have felt like that, it's also because I wasn't being supported in the way that I deserved. And I've had enough time away from that situation to really evaluate it. And so it actually wasn't beyond my capacity at all. I felt over my head because I just wasn't getting the support that I needed from the person I reported to, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think, and that's just a very unique and challenging situation. I think, you know, you can feel imposter syndrome. I think for a long time I denied that was a real thing, but it is. I think anyone who's not a psycho probably struggles at some point with it. And I don't know. I don't know if it's specific to me. I tend to operate in mostly white spaces. When I first started working in Massachusetts, I worked at the legislature when I was 18. So the youngest, the brownest. And that's just kind of, you know, then I worked in defense and there weren't a lot of people like me and so on and on. So yeah, it's usually just the way it is. There aren't a lot of me wherever I'm at. But the time in my career where I felt most overwhelmed upon reflection, I was just in a fairly toxic environment where I wasn't being supported. And so it was just a constant reassessment of whether I belong there. Like, should I occupy? And despite the fact that I could see great results. And so that's where I learned to be really rooted in the quantitative aspects of performance, meaning, okay, if you're being gaslit and someone's constantly telling you that you're not enough, which can happen in some workplaces, even sometimes it's well-intentioned, right?
Yeah.
You guys may have a different communication style and maybe you say like a lot and so people think you're less intelligent than you are, whatever it is. Everyone has all these biases. If you are looking at numbers and you are having a positive impact on the top 3 numbers that have been decided upon between you and your organization as the most important numbers for the business, then how are you going to tell me I'm not awesome, right? So I do that. I learned my lesson there. I was in a dark place from being in that environment, and I do it with everything now. I literally work out, my diet. Like, I will look at the numbers for anything that I'm trying to get better at, just to stay rooted in that. Because the minute feeling, emotion, or opinion comes into it, that's when the second guessing starts. So very long-winded answer, but in case anybody else is in an environment like that where you feel horrible and you're looking at it and you're like, I have this great job and I'm doing this project and I think I'm doing a great idea, just keep going back to your numbers. Because if the numbers look awesome and you're hearing from people that you're, you know, not crushing it, maybe you're just in the wrong place.
That's so interesting. So I have an MBA in statistics. Like, I love numbers. Like, I am all about analytics, and we quantify, as I'm going to quantify delight. Like, I will quantify everything that I can. But when you have those numbers to support you, because it's funny, you just took me back. I've completely blocked out this experience, but I had that same experience. Like, I was in a previous job. I was the top performer in, you know, what I was doing, but I was constantly getting, and actually I really had a toxic boss too, now that I think about it, but I was constantly getting, you know, kind of squashed down and told that like my ideas weren't right and like my approach was wrong. And so that was actually part of my early stages of being like, you know what, I'm just going to do this my damn self. Like, I am just going to be my own boss. I want to be an entrepreneur, because I didn't believe in the guidance that I was getting, and my work, my data qualified my measures because they were quantified. So I feel that same way too. And then, but like, how do you recognize that, yeah, the data says that you're performing, but then can you change your environment? Like, did you find that it was just like no change was going to be possible and you just had to exit the situation, or was there a way out of it for you?
I just left.
That's an option.
I left, and I think I had a lot of self-doubt about doing that. It's a really successful company. I love them. I wish them the best. There's no ill will. It's been years. But it wasn't a healthy environment for me. Yeah. I did not see that what do you stand to gain from being in an environment where you're constantly told, you know, you're not good enough despite the fact that you're generating lots of revenue? Like, what's the point? Like, why there? So it was tough, but I left and life's been great. So I don't have any regrets about it, but it's privilege. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody can do that. And I really had to earn the right to be in a place in my life where I could walk away from a really great paying job not simply because obviously it was painful, but just because I felt that it was a toxic environment where people were just very focused on the wrong stuff. So if you're in a position of privilege to do that, walk away. If you're not, start looking at those numbers and just turning them into really awesome bullets in your resume. Like, somebody out there loves you and there's a member of your community, they'll be more than happy to start floating that resume for you. Like, no one should ever feel that way. It doesn't matter where on the career ladder you are. If you're crushing it, there's a home for you somewhere else.
Definitely. Okay, so we have some questions from viewers, but I want to ask just one final question here. So I'd love to see how you quantify this. Randy Zuckerberg defined what she calls the entrepreneur's dilemma. And I do. I think this is relevant for any entrepreneur, anybody really, like in work-life balance. So she said that you can only have 3 of life's basic core needs, being work, sleep, family, fitness or wellness, and friends. Do you believe that? And if so, which do you prioritize?
This is, again, a situation where I want to like deny that she's correct, but she clearly is. I want to say, like, no, like you can crush all of them. Like, I would be lying. No, that it's just true. But I think that's the life dilemma. I think that's everybody. And so like, I think so I've just started to get a little better at this. So like, I put on some makeup today and tried to look like reasonably human, but like I've completely abandoned that. Like, I just don't wear makeup most days. So like, and I have like sweatpants with holes in them. Like, I'm gross. And I've saved a bunch of time, but like personal appearance and grooming habits is probably like a 0, right?
Yeah.
Fitness, I've been riding the Peloton all the time. So here.
My friend here is like, let's be Peloton friends.
Please. So like, it is true, but I think it's true for all human beings. You can't fire on all cylinders on all things. So like, you got to pick the 3 for the season of your life that you're in. So when your kids are super little, I used to do this to myself a lot. When my kids are 14 months apart. And when they were like 6 months and 20 months, my husband was in business school and it was crazy. And I used to be like, no, it's still going to be fine. Like, I'm going to write a book. Like, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. Like, kids aren't going to stop me. Like, yeah, they actually are. And you're not doing that. You do that when they're in college. So then you kind of readjust your expectations. Well, what season of my life am I in and what should I prioritize? Do I need the support of my friends? Can I be a better friend right now? So do you get what I'm saying? So she's totally right, but I think that's just the human condition. So for me right now, like, I just don't want to shock everyone when the pandemic's over and they learn that I've eaten ice cream every day for over a year. So I'm back on the fitness track. And it's better for you. You know, you should live for your children and all that. It's the business, fitness, and trying to be a better friend. I'm probably like not the best wife, but I'll focus on that later.
You guys are stable. That's where JC, my husband, is at. He's like, we're stable, right? Like, we're fine. For me, it's like work and family are the top 2. Like, they're always 1 and 2. And then I rotate that 3rd. And I totally agree with you. I actually had a friend tell me I was a bad friend a few years ago. And I was like, yeah, I am being a bad friend. And I don't know, like, I am trying to fix that. Thank you for calling me out on it. Good friend. But like,
what would you do? Are you a better friend to that person?
No, actually, we're not friends anymore. But I think we were at a mutual point in life where we just like you know how when you make friends with like parents or just other parents in general, when your kids are really little, like infants, and then at that point you're just trying to keep your kids alive. Like, your priorities are like, keep this little like mush ball alive. Like, that's my priority. Well, then when you start making parenting decisions and moves and whatever, you realize that your values are different. That's kind of how that went. So like, we have different, so we had different values in life and we just kind of like grew apart. So, but it was a fair point that she called me out on. She was like, you're just not being a good friend. And then I had to think, well, like, what does that mean to you? Because you're probably right. I'm probably not being a good friend right now, but I'm not sure that you're a good friend to me either. So like, having this people, that support you.
Well, that's what I was gonna say though. Like, counterpoint, my best friends know what it means if I'm gone for 3 months. It means one of 2 things. 1, work and kids have gotten really aggressive. Or 2, I'm doing that weird thing that I do when I'm overwhelmed, which is I just retreat and hide.
Yeah.
So they know either, oh, she's hiding and I need to pull her out by being the better friend, or I need to just give her the space to do what she's doing and just send a text message once a week saying, hey, thinking of you, I love you. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And that's what I do actually. Like, I've got like little moments in my calendar, because it takes them that I've learned from my aunt, actually. Like, she always I was on her rotation. I think I was like every 7 business days, she'd call me on her way home from work because she had like worked through, her sequence of people. So I try and catch up with people on my 20-minute commute, which I'm actually not even taking that much. But I'll also put like little moments in my calendar where it's like, oh, it's my friend's dog's birthday, or like,
I love that.
the
You are a
anniversary.
good friend. I'm mad at that person.
So I try, and then it's a quick text message, or maybe I can get the call in, but I have to respond to it right away. So, okay, so we're going to take a couple questions here. So from Leanne R, what habits do each of you do to keep balance? Oh, this is kind of what we're talking about. All right, so habits to keep ourselves balanced between ideas, work, family, and personal time. So like, what are some so that was actually one of my techniques. Like, I just put little reminders for myself into my calendar, and they're either recurring or like just yesterday. What's today? Today's Saturday. Yesterday, I had a friend taking a very important certification exam. And so I just texted her in the morning, good luck today, I'm thinking of you. And she responded very appreciatively. But like, I haven't actually talked to her in 6 months. I just knew that was coming up for her.
And to me, that's just almost more meaningful than like checking in every day. You know what I mean? Because she probably doesn't have time to check in every day. But you were there when it counted. I think, so mine is a little different. I hope this isn't disappointing answer for Leanne, but I made a decision. It was around the time I got involved in startups. So like 6 or 7 years ago, that it was all the same for me. And my children are so young that the startup was a big part of their life. It was just really all encompassing. So like friends that I had who were, and they're still my friends, they were colleagues at that startup. My children have known them for like 5-6 years or whatever it may be. My family knows of them. So it's not the most satisfying answer. It's all very blended, but I think the one thing that I've started to do that, makes it really healthy for me is like, this is just who I am. I'm a very aggressive individual. I like to win. I like to work really hard. And I like to make people I care about money. So if you're my business partner, you're my employee, whatever it may be, like I want to do whatever it takes to help you be successful. And that usually involves giving everything that I have. And so I need my family's buy-in for that. So I will make time for everybody, but if there's a candle in the car, if I'm out with my kids at mini golf and someone's like, wow, I haven't found an awesome candle in a long time. Like they're not going to be mad if I pull it out of my deck. Yeah. Like it's just part of, I guess, like choosing to love me is choosing, understanding that I'm a weirdo that way. But I've gotten much better at like just disappearing and doing stuff just for me. So we got a puppy and he needs to be walked a lot. So Leanne, like I'll grab a book. So he's a bull mastiff, I should add, and he's massive. So he doesn't want to,
right.
Right. He's 8 months, 120 pounds, and he just wants to lay like a rock. I just bring a book. I'm like, well, you're not going to move. I'm not going to get angry because I have other things to do. I do, but why not like enjoy a nice book with a beautiful dog in the sunshine? Like, why not?
I think what you're saying too is like overlapping, combining, because that's what I do. Like I try and like, if I'm going to meet up with a friend, let's go for a walk or a hike. Or we bring our kids to work with us. Like we'll bring them to the tap room or to the restaurant or wherever, and they can read books, and then we'll go for like a walk or play, but I get to do some work. So I try and overlap. Sometimes, sometimes we do family workouts together. So I try and combine 2 or 3 of those 5 things all the time. So that way I get some level of, it might not be 100%, but it's like 80% commitment to each.
Because I think if you have these kind of personalities, you're going to be perpetually frustrated that you don't get separation if you think that's a thing that you desire. So having the overlap or just like having the buy-in from the people that love you to like, they're always kind of blended, but people get the one-on-one time when it really matters. I think that's a, good way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. So from Sarah Robinson. When starting a business, where do you think time should be focused first? Is it marketing, finance? What is that for you?
I'm a products person, so that's a tough one, right? If you know what let's pretend you're going to sell something directly to people like I do, so like physical products. After you've nailed that, I think the unit economics of your business and the finances for sure, right? Because what that's allowed us, and I can, it's a journey. I'm not perfect at it, right? Like the other day I reviewed the credit card statement and I'm like, oh, I've been paying $30 a month for this thing I don't use. Mortifying. But like every penny really counts. I think if you're really tight about your finances and making sure you're profitable and you're acquiring customers sustainably, you can then have more control of your business. You can say like, wow, we're growing so quickly and our finances are so strong that we don't need any outside capital. Or you could say, we're doing so well that if we had some outside capital, we could 100x in 2 years or less, and we could bring more to the table for our our future partners. So you get this, variable like options that you don't get if you're running out of money. So that would be, and I'm a marketer, so it pains me to say that, but like the capital is the most important.
Well, I'm a finance degree, so I totally support that. And I would say, like, again, my biased perspective, I think it's really true. Like, I think that, yes, so 100% product first. Like, if you don't have a quality product, what are you even doing? So product first, make sure that you have something that people actually that they're going to want, that you can be proud of, but then it's got to be your finances. Like, you have to understand cash flow. So for example, in beer, I have to buy an ingredient several weeks to months before that product is even ready for sale. So understanding what your cash flow is and scalability, pivot points, like how are you going to source and then get your product to market? And then how are you going to continue to sustain that? So if you can build out a long-term, even like your first 12 months, like you have to understand where your money is going and when it's going to come in.
And I'm jealous of you because I don't have that finance background, and I've had to get there as a business person.
Right?
Well, it's such a good gift, to yourself. Like if you know where every penny is going, and you have a really complex business model, like if you make one mistake, it can be a really expensive mistake. So no matter what you're doing, it's never going to be a waste of your time to have your finances tight. Like what's the worst that could happen? You have extra money, like.
Well, you need that buffer. So we had always said, when people ask me in the early stages, at least of starting a brewery, like you need 3 months of cash on hand, because if you lose a batch of beer, like you got to buy and brew another batch. Like you need money to get you to a sustainable inventory level. Our first week open, actually, we ran out of beer. And so we had to shut down, which is a good problem to have, but we had to shut down because we had to make more beer. So understanding those finances, the in and the out, and the timing of it was critical to us.
And so fun. You'll have fun with it after a while.
So much fun. Spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. Okay, another question here from Jill K. Where do you go, read, or do to find? Where do you go, read, or do to find inspiration?
Not going anywhere right now. But I try to go outside. And so like, again, when I have to be outside to walk the dog. So I try to go to where there's no people and listen to birds versus look at my phone, smell spring, or, when it was winter, like just notice how quiet it is. Cause we had like a bajillion feet of snow, like different things like that. I find that really inspiring. I read a lot. In that vein, yeah. Have you ever read Wintering by Catherine May?
No, but I will put that on my list now.
I'm going to send it to you. Oh my God. So this book is basically talking about everyone goes through a winter, and we can either choose to pretend it's not coming, or we can prepare for it and lessen the buffer. So she was diagnosed with cancer. And she chose to just succumb to it and give into the winter, and kind of turn to nature and looked at different animals and how they prepare for the winter and how they're like super hardy and they come out of it in the spring, and it's really beautiful, and it's just part of the life cycle. And so that book was, that book was like so meaningful to me. And it wasn't necessarily that I was in a winter, but when things are going super awesome and you're like, I know how life is. Something's going
to take a turn.
Yeah, this does. I feel like having read that book, when that time does come, I will be much gentler to myself. And I feel like I know how to respond more effectively to people who are going through their own winters, right? Because someone someone you love somebody's going through something, and you want to make sure you can be supportive. And then what do I do to find inspiration? Then my last one, I surround myself with people that are just such a big deal and so incredible. Like I told you, Esther, about my homegirl Yulitza with the doll company. There's a woman named Jing who launched this like chili oil and like Asian condiment company. I like eat a gallon of it a month. Like she's an incredible entrepreneur. So I just surround myself with people who, if I woke up tomorrow and was in their shoes, I would be delighted. Like people that just, they're just, I don't know, they're just inspiring. They're awesome and cool. So I have a lot of people like that around me. So that's how I do it.
That is amazing. So like you, I love to read as well. So I will take your book recommendation. You should join my book club, which I have like a very long list.
Done.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. So I read a lot. I think that one of the things that is a source of inspiration for me, once I got out of like the nitty gritty, the day to day, like we don't just make beer. And I've never really thought about Trillium as just beer, but opening my eyes and appreciating the interconnectivity of everything we do. Like we joke a little bit, but it's real, like our Trillium ecosystem. So now we do, you know, beer and food and farming, but also there's so much more to like just running the business than that. There's supply chain and logistics and environmental impact, and we do philanthropy. So looking for little connections in all of the things we do. Once I opened my eyes and focused on like opportunity and thinking about what are the ways that like anything I'm seeing around me can relate to what I do, how can I improve upon that, right? Like I just have a curious mind in that way, and I'm always looking for connections. And so looking at anything and everything around me as a potential opportunity or a connection or you know, a way to derive inspiration is like, that's something that keeps me motivated, even when I'm, you know, it could be just my kids. Like my kids were my inspiration for starting book clubs. So I just like try and stay open to all of what's going on around me.
Well, you like attract it to yourself when you do that. And it probably has just become like a snowball effect when you were looking for the inspiration and then it found you, and now you just seek it and then it's there and it never stops. If anything, I'm probably too inspired. Now I'm like, what's up with the Trillium Ilda Nature beer in 2030 or whatever? Like maybe someday I'll have enough honey for you.
We'll be using the bees. We'll do all of the same things together. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, like inspiration, no shortage of inspiration at like literally even this conversation and thinking about like how hard your business model is and how much you do. And you're like, yeah, I'm just going to talk to, you know, these women in March and give people a platform to tell their stories. Like you're super awesome. Your team is awesome. So was it Jill's question? I'm overly inspired all the time.
I love it. I love it. Same. Like now we're going to do candles and bees and honey. And I've got a new book recommendation and you're joining book club. Like so many things just came out of this time together. So
I'm pumped. And people talk trash about March. March is kicking ass so far.
March is pretty good so far. I know. That's because like anything's better than March 2020. So
fair. That's fair. Like that.
Yeah. But Veronica, it was so great chat. I could chat with you for hours. But
friends.
We're friends now. So this is what we do.
Yeah.
We do anytime. But I'm so glad we were able to share our conversation with everybody out there. And hopefully one day we'll be sharing beers or books or whatever together.
Thank you. So thank you, Trillium team and Esther, for having me, and to everyone that watched and asked questions. I'm super easy to find on the internet. So if any of you want a book rack or inspiration recommendations, hit me up.
Yes. And next week, please, I hope you'll tune in again, same time, same place, when I'll be speaking with Annie Wang from Her Campus Media. So until then, you can look for me on Instagram. I'll be live for the next 30 minutes on DM. My husband made sure to clarify. So if you have any questions that we didn't get to answer, please feel free to message me or find both Veronica and I on LinkedIn, and you can ask us questions there. But Veronica, I can't wait to hang out with you again soon.
I'm so thankful. Bye. We'll talk soon.
Bye, y'all.